everyone and welcome to another video. In this one, we are going to recreate the Jetdragon from Palworld using Blender. Palworld is an amazing game and if you haven't, you should definitely check it out. I mean, I played myself and it is very fun. So today we are going to recreate this legendary pole or companion and it's going to be very fun. And feel free you to follow along if you want, since it will be very fun and educative. So first thing first, I will use this side reference. We're going to start off with the body. Let me add a cube. In edit mode, I'll make sure I extend it on both sides. And on the other side too. And then with the loop cuts, I will split it into 3 different parts. So one part represents the neck, other body, and the third part is tail. And of course, feel free to subscribe, share, like, it does help me a lot and I do appreciate it, so I can make even more such content for you. And now back to the dragon. I'm just going to make this smaller and bring it a bit upwards. And of course the same thing we need to do for the neck. Let me add some more belly loop cuts so we can make him more rounder. Now he looks like a boat. I just need to also make sure his back is rounded. Now I'll just bring this more upwards. So we have a nice transition between the belly and the tail. We made this smaller. And of course this is just the main blockout, so it is going to be quite rough. But the main thing we want to focus on is to get a shape that is pretty similar to this one. Let me make this smaller. And of course now I'm doing this from the side view. Later we will add loop cuts and make it a bit more 3D. So we want to also focus on the front view and the top view. Let me just refine this. This needs to go downwards. Okay, let me extend a neck a bit more. And you can see from the other sides it is blocky. But that is why we will add some loop cuts. For example, here I can add 2 loop cuts. And also 2 for the upper part. And now I'm just going to select the whole thing and then smooth vertices. That way we'll get a much rounder shape, which is what we want, like this. And of course that also flattened our belly, but we can use the proportional editing like this. Let me just select it. We can pull the belly downwards. Like this. Let me tweak it a bit more. And now if I look at it from the top view, let me just find another reference so I can show you. As we can see from this one, you can see that the back is rounded, so we need to make him overall more rounded and also his tail and neck a bit slimmer. So first, let me just go to the X-ray mode, like this. I need to make the tail much more narrower. Same for the neck. And now we can even extend the belly to the sides. Now he looks better. Let me just like this. Well, now he's fat and happy. Pretty nice, actually. Let me also see it from the sides to make him more rounded. Now I will add some more modifiers. So first I will add a subdivision surface, and then I will add a smooth modifier. I want to make sure the smooth modifier is below the subdivision. So first the mesh is subdivided, and then it is made smooth. So like this, let me just increase the subdivision. And now much better. I can see the highlights, I can see where it needs to be more rounded. And it already looks much better. Now I'm just going to select these two edges and bring them inwards so we get a more rounded look. And I can also select these down edges and pull them downwards so I get this more of a round shape. Now let me just go to the sculpt mode using the elastic deform brush. I will just extend some parts and make him a bit better. Even though I have this subdivision, I'm still going to be able to easily manipulate geometry since I haven't applied this subdivision itself. So we still have few vertices, which we can see we can move. Oh, let me just enable symmetry. And you can see when I move it, it's pretty easily movable. And of course, it does not cause any lag. Like here. Now let me also add a material. Let me make it gray. And I'll also switch the shading to the matte cap. That way I can see it a bit easier. And these are the settings that I use while sculpting heads or anatomy, since it gives me much easier perspective on the shading parts and also some anomalies. Okay. Let me just bring this up a bit. Go to the side reference. Okay. Need to lower the back a bit, but raise here. Since remember, because we did not apply the subdivision modifier, we still have very low vertex count and it just does not work for the smooth brush. I need to make it here a bit more proportional, like this. Okay, I'm just looking at the curves from this reference. You can see I angled it that way, fixing some little tweaks. Like this. And yes, I like to take things slow. As you can see, I would rather much spend some time trying to get the shape right, making micro adjustments. That way I just love doing it. Okay, let me go back to the sculpt mode, make some few adjustments. And yes, I like doing this micro type of tweaks, so I do not spend as much time on it later. I would rather refine one part and then move on to the next, than just to jump from one part to another. I just want it to all be similarly finished. Okay, let me just see. Now we'll actually do the head next. Let me just hide this and rename it body. So the head we will do in a different way. Let me first add a sphere. And we are just going to sculpt the head. So the part below, along with the fins, the mouth, the eyes, is going to be sculpted. And the fins that go from the top of the head, we are just going to make in the edit mode. We are going to model them. Okay, this is how the front view looks like. This reference is also very helpful. And as you can see, I noticed now the difference. So in the game pictures, you can see that this is going downwards, while in the others, it just in a different direction. Let me just get the shape right. Okay, I'm going to squash this up a bit. Okay. And this is the reference I'm going to use because, as you can see, this little thing near his mouth is pointing downwards, and I like it a bit more. Make sure this is also a bit more spread out. As you can see, his brain has volume. He has a brain. Okay, down here, I'm just going to use the mask to make the mouth. I'm just going to mask this down part here. Let me just move it here. Increase the strength to 1. Okay, then I'm going to invert the mask and use the snake hook brush to make the mouth. So this is too much. No. A bit smaller. Like this. Also, I want to make it more triangular. So it follows the main shape. And of course, I will have to get rid of the mask and remesh. Let me just find this reference here. Let me get rid of the mask, okay. And I can pull this a bit more outwards to make the shape a lot smoother. Here I'm pulling the mouth a bit inwards. And also this part here. Since it is more angular. Let me now look at it from the front. And this picture is perfect to see the face shape. You can see on above, otherwise where his head is, his brain, it is more rounded. Then on the side, it is flat. And again, where the mouth is, it is more rounded. So now I will recreate that using the smooth brush. But I think I can increase the strength a bit. And now it is much better. The smooth brush will also create a pretty flat plane, so it is useful for that. I will use the elastic deform to do also some minor tweaks. And I also use the inflate brush. That way I can get some mass on top of the head. Like this. And I can also smooth it to make it less angular. Okay, that looks more like it. I'm also smooth this upper here. Now I'll just remesh it on a lower resolution, so the bottom part of the mouth does not connect with the upper part. Like this. Let me also smooth it down a bit. And now what I'm going to do is make this crease here. And the reason why I'm doing it, so I can differentiate the different planes. Later that is going to be useful. And this will give us the separation that we are going to need. Of course, I'm going to smooth it so it is not as obvious. And you'll see it will just help us get a nicer shape. Let me just make sure this is also filled a bit more. Now back to this reference. Now I'm going to go to the object mode and let us make the upper part of his head. Other words, the jet things, I will call them. So I will just put this to the side and first scale it down to make it sort of a plane-like. And when I say plane, I mean like a flat piece, not an airplane. Even though it can go both ways here. Plane. Funny word. Now I'm just measuring with my fingers how big it is proportionally to the head. Just make it a bit wider. Now I'm trying to do most of the scaling because when I angle it, it's going to be a bit harder. This I'm just going to make sure it is going a bit to the side, like this. And of course the top part is narrower than the bottom. On this reference here, I can see the angle more clearly. And now let me just try to position it from the front view. So I'll need to angle it a bit to the side like this. And you can see it is not exactly as straight panels, so I'll need to, okay, let me just make this. I'll need to pull it away from the head a bit more. And now I will actually add a loop cut to make this sort of a shape change that we can see on the picture. Like this. Now I'm looking how it connects to the head. Let me just angle it a bit more. Also, I will make this shorter and I need to angle it to be straight. And of course, I can also use the face snapping. That way I will snap those vertices on the face. So we get that sort of an organic connection that we need. This part here, and this is going to go upwards. Now I will go back to the head. As you can see, I need to do some fix. And as you can see, I have been focusing on another thing, towards that part here. Now I will do this fin, so-called fin that goes downwards, by just masking this region. Then once again, when I'm done, I will invert the mask. And then use the snake hook brush to extrude it. But I'm going to use this reference here. As you can see, there is a difference between the game Jetdragon and the Jetdragon from the trailer. And so we are going with this one, because I like the angle that it creates with the fins above. Or jet wings. Jets. Like this. Okay, now what I did, I remeshed it so I can tweak it a bit more without breaking the geometry. Let me just look at it from the front view. Now let us also angle those. You can use the elastic deform brush. And now just carefully make these like this. And what I would like to do now is mask this region, because I want to actually use the pose brush to move this a bit to the side, so I want to make it a bit angular. And I will mask this region so my posing does not affect the rest of the head. So now I will invert the mask and use the pose tool, like this. And then I will angle it. Also a bit inwards. Okay, here I'm refining the shape a bit. Also from the back. Okay, now I will mask this part here. So I can extrude this triangle fin connection. Like this. I'm going to make this a bit smaller. Because we want it to be sharp. Now I will also indent the inner part of the mouth. Now I will go back to the object mode. Let us mirror this jet fin like this. I'm going to use the mirror modifier. I'm also going to use the inflate brush to add a bit of mask here. As you can see, it is kind of visible. And now I would also like to highlight this separation here, as you can see, in a form of a triangle. I think I will need a bit more geometry, so let me just remesh this. Control R, and here we are. That actually rhymed. Okay, now I'm just making this indentation. But of course, I want it to be a bit more subtle. So I'll actually smooth it a bit. And I will use the crease brush to make it a bit sharper. Of course, later we will refine it as we add more geometry. And now with the grab brush, I will actually refine the shape of these lower fins. Okay, now I will also smooth this. Because we have more geometry, I can also make like these connections, for example, appear a bit more smooth. And I can also smooth the whole thing, why not? Here in the back. and of course the mouth part. But I just want to make sure I do not smooth it too much so I do not lose the shape. Okay, now let me go back in edit mode, and I need to move this backwards. Let me also select this vertex and snap it on again. Let me also tweak those. Okay, I also want to make it a bit smaller. Back to the sculpt mode. I need to further refine the mouth part. What I will also do is make a crease here. Which of course we'll later refine when we get more geometry. But I also want to make sure I fill this part here. Okay. I will also indent this. The lower part of the mouth. I need to also fix this. I will also make the connection here bigger. This part will connect directly to the neck, and we want the connection to be as smooth as possible, and we can achieve that by having shapes that are pretty similar in dimensions. Okay, rename this. This we will actually call jet wing head. You know this, jet wing head. This will be done head. Okay, we got the naming right. One step at a time. Okay, this is the body. Now let us connect the body to the head. And I do not mean in sculpt mode or Control J. I just want to have it in this way so I can visualize the dimensions. Okay, we need to make the head smaller. And of course bring it up. And what we can also do is make the body bigger. It pretty much does the same thing, but for me it is easier to just scale the body. And it looks nice. So let me just add a cube. The next thing that we will do is make the crescent moon shape, which we can see on the tail. I need to bring it back. And I will actually add a mirror modifier. And I'm going to mirror it on the z-axis. That way we can make only one moon and have it completely identical on the other side. I also want to make sure I enable clipping. And now it is connected. Make sure you're in X-ray mode. And then I will just try to make the crescent moon shape. For that I will need a few more loop cuts. Like this. Of course, let me also add the subdivision surface modifier so we get a more similar shape. And I also need to make the crescent moon a bit narrower. Tweak this a bit. Now that looks more like it. And of course we need to also make the tail a bit bigger. And as you can see, let me just point out this. So the size of the crescent moon is exactly the size of the jet wing head and the lower fin parts. Maybe a bit smaller, but this is how I know I got the size of the crescent moon right. Let me just bring it here. As you can see, we need to use it in the object mode. In the object mode, I will actually position it. So either way, you can apply the mirror modifier and then position it in the edit mode, or go to the object mode and then position it that way. Like this. Now let's make the tail a bit longer. Of course, let us also add a loop cut here. And then make the transition between the back and the tail a bit smoother. Bring it a bit backwards. And also I would like to make the tip of the tail a bit sharper. And I can do that by actually making this smaller. And then let me just position it. Make sure this is symmetrical. And if we notice later on that it is not, we can always delete half of it and mirror it to the other side. Let me also just tweak this a bit. Now the next thing which we will do are the legs. They're sort of torus shaped. Reminds me of a speaker or some mechanical part. Okay. Now let us add the torus. And first I want to position it close to the spot where the legs are going to be. Move it outwards. And then we also want to rotate it. Then I will use the Alt S to get it in the right shape. The inner part we do not need, so I will delete it. And the same goes for the inner parts that are behind or that are going to connect to the leg. It is just too much geometry that we are not going to see anyway, so I'll just fill this in. And here I'll also fill this part in because it is going to represent the red part, as you can see. Let me select the loop cut F, and here it is. And then this part will be the black part. Let me just shade smooth it so I can see the scale a bit better. Move this a bit downwards. Let me select all of this. I'll use the Alt S. And that looks much better. Now let us try and position it on the dragon, so I want to make it a bit smaller. And of course I want to bring it closer. We know that the knee goes outwards, so this goes outwards too. And it sort of connects this way. I need to bring it a bit more downwards. Let me just try to angle it this way, like this. More. And put it down. We'll add a modifier to mirror it to the other side, so we can better visualize the position. At least I find it easier that way. Okay, of course, if you want to scale it or move it, we can go either to the edit mode, like this. We just try this out. When I look at this reference, it was better before, like this. Now the next part which we will do is the lower leg and feet. It is pretty interesting, so let us do it from a cube as well. I will bring it backwards and a bit closer so it will be easier to position it. Okay, let me just extrude this backwards. Or at least move it. And then I will actually add few loop cuts, so one here and one on the top. I can select the whole thing and use smooth vertices to get a more rounder shape. And to further make it more round, let me just use this subdivision surface. And what I can also do is select the corners like this. So these two vertices, and those on the back. And I can just scale them down and quickly make any object round. This is a pretty nice trick if you're doing hard surface modeling, like I am now. This vertex I do not need, so I will delete it. Like this loop cut, press E to extrude, scale it inwards. I just want to make sure everything's lined up, so let me just quickly line that up. Bring them forwards. And the same goes for those that are in. Now I can select that whole loop cut, and I'm going to extrude inwards, just so it has sort of a depth. And then I can fill the inner part in. Let me also select the loop cut. I can just press F. And do not worry about the result, since this inner part will not be visible because the claw is coming from it. Now I will just add another cube. Same thing as before. I'm just going to bring this closer. Bring this outwards. And make it a bit more proportional. Of course, I'm going to need more geometry, so let us first add a few more loop cuts. And the same thing as before, I'm going to select the edges and press S to scale them down to get a more rounder look. I can also select these two parts, position them a bit better. And when it comes to these lines, as you can see, what I can do to make them a bit straight is I can S and scale them down to 0 on the Y-axis. Same goes for the other side as well. Once again, outlining this a bit more. Also, I will just make it like this. And also, let us add the subdivision surface. Put it to 3. And let us also position this a bit better. Now, let me just scale this up a bit. And now I can also angle this a bit more. This front part, I will actually just press G 2 times, sort of bring it backwards. Okay, I also need to scale this down a bit. Let me also apply our transforms. Now I'm just going to select this bottom part, and I will bring it upwards in order to make it flat. Since usually, as you can see, that is the case on this model, the feet are flat so the character or the creature can walk a bit better. In reality, it's not easier walking with straight feet or flat feet, but in this case it does not glitch through the ground. And now I'm going to connect these two with Ctrl J, and so these two are now together and I can move them much more easily. Of course, I want to make sure the origin is set to geometry so I can rotate it. And let us also position it and scale it down as we see on the picture. Move it to the side. Okay, first I'm just trying to position it. Look at the scale, make sure it is good on all sides. And then as you can see, it is more angled on the picture. So let us recreate that. And I'm also looking at the size. So it is as it should be. Let me just move it here. I will also add a mirror modifier. And now he has not one, but 2 feet. I also want to thank you for watching. We are going to continue in the next episode. And well, can't wait to see you there. Bye bye!